The Annie Frey Show is St. Louis conservative.
All across the U.S., thousands of No Kings protests in all 50 states. Fox News Digital took a closer look at how these protests are being funded and organized. Turns out the marches are being coordinated by a network of around 500 groups with an estimated $3 billion in annual revenue. They include some communist groups funded by Neville Roy Singham. He's an American tech tycoon and an avowed communist who lives in China.
So you got a video on this this No Kings protest situation where you got people loading signs and stuff into trucks. And we've seen these protests over and over and over again. And, you know, it's important to point out here in St. Louis that Ferguson, you know, we all remember Ferguson. It was kind of what feels like the genesis of Protest Inc., where all of a sudden you saw things and it's like, gosh, this doesn't really feel like Ferguson or St. Louis. All of a sudden it started to feel like something else. Something else swarms in on a cause and then kind of just takes it and makes it their own thing. And then the rage happens until it doesn't. How does this happen? How does it continue to repeat itself in a very similar fashion from protest to protest to protest happening across the world, you might even add? Let's get to our next guest here, Asra Nomani, senior editor of investigations at Fox News Digital, author of Woke Army, the Red-Green Alliance that is destroying America's freedom. Asra, thank you for being with us today. It's good to have you back.
Oh, thank you so much. I think my next book is going to be Protest Inc., right?
You know?
I'm on the streets every weekend, and I'm tracking them like I used to cover the airline industry for the Wall Street Journal, and that's what I feel like I'm doing again, is covering an industry.
So talk to me about the No Kings protest that happened this weekend. A lot of consistencies from everywhere around the country, but even across the world, and then possibly, I would think, consistencies to previous protests that have taken place. What have you learned, Asra?
Yeah, well, I want to frame all of this conversation with this concept that's really helped me. There's a communications expert that I talked to who said that there's a phenomena that they often try to create of the myth of the marching millions in order to push forward a cause, an idea, an ideology even. And so what I've observed over a decade now of being on the streets, reporting on these protests, is that there is a system that is very coordinated and pre-planned in organizing these protests. It's almost like the wedding planning industry. You have a run of show. You have your props. You have your music. You have your stage planned, porta johns in case there's more people than the little crowd. Why do I know this? Is because I've also gone to the National Park Service and gotten the permits that they have to get when they are going to be organizing these big events at landmarks like the Lincoln Memorial, or the Washington Monument. Mm-hmm. And when you get the permit, I've seen their run of show. And it might as well be the wedding planner, saying, okay, at 4:25 p.m., the bride will throw the bouquet, because they've scripted it. They have every minute planned. They show up usually at sunrise in order to set up, and they're there till dark, breaking it all down. And I saw this again. So I went to St. Paul, Minnesota, got on a plane on Friday, and landed and arrived on Saturday. And there before me was the production. And it was stage managed. There was pre-made signs. There was a media credential table. And Annie, I know you're shocked at this, but I didn't get credentials. I don't know. They didn't return my email.
No. Oh, man.
I know. I'm like, come on, people.
They don't care about diversity of thought, huh? Just the pre-approved crowds. You've got in your piece here, and I'm going to encourage people to go read it on foxnews.com. Marxist activists call for May Day strike at No Kings protest nationwide. You highlight a stat that was just played there in the Fox News clip that we played. 500 organizations with an estimated combined annual revenue of about $3 billion sponsored and organized the demonstrations. So, I can respect, I've been in media for 20 years. I can respect a well-produced event. There could still be a cause behind that, but it never happens without money. The amount of ideas that have been left on the table in radio companies I've worked with because the money wasn't there are infinite. How do they pull this off with getting all of this capital?
Well, they have a multi-million-dollar nonprofit industry that is the ecosystem for this protest incorporated. And what has happened is that we have big major philanthropies that are pumping hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars actually into these nonprofits and getting tax-deductible donations. So it's not any different than you and me. We go and we give, $10 to the Salvation Army and we get our little receipt. Well, now in this case, we have gazillionaires who are basically putting their money into these nonprofits that further their ideological cause. And the two that I highlighted in my piece that I want everybody to know is that one of the major organizers of this event nationally is named Indivisible. And so what do? They borrow those great ideas of rhetoric that we've had from American democracy, in one nation under God, indivisible, right? So they've taken that word, they've made an entire brand out of it. They have a 501c3, which is not allowed to do much political work, and then they have a 501c4 that's allowed to do a little bit more political work. They have all these buckets, and in that little empire that they've created, they have six-figure salaries for their executives, and they have a machine that churns out the products that create that that myth of the marching millions. The digital toolkit, the graphics, the social media graphics. I've got all of them. They put them up on Google Docs. I make a copy. I've got it archived for that library I'm going to create one day to the protest industry.
Protesting.
Yeah, that's next to the museum of all the signs I've collected. And so, Annie, what happens is that's one aspect. And now the story that everybody, I hope, will understand is that we've moved to now is a really important one to know, is that the Indivisible represents the center Democrat left that has been active for years now. But what has happened is we have an alliance now between that network and a further left of organizations that are self-described Marxists, communists,
not hiding
and Maoists. Yeah, and I always use the word self-described to be fair to them. They are binge-watched hundreds of hours of their videos. I know my Marxism now. And what's really important is they actually are supporting the Communist Party of China. And the big donor there is a man by the name of Neville Roy Singham.
I keep hearing this name.
He lives in Shanghai. Ask me anything. I know his favorite hobby, ping pong, when he was born, who his dad is. And I've reached out to him many times for comment. But we have then now this nexus of Neville Roy Singham and the man that people are more familiar with named George Soros, who has funded Indivisible for years. And now that collaboration is what we saw on the streets on Saturday.
Okay, so we're speaking with Asra Nomani, a wonderful, well-thought-out, as you can hear, well-researched piece on foxnews.com. Marxist activists call for May Day strike at No Kings protest nationwide. When we get done here, I'll retweet this article for people if they want to find it quickly from my Twitter account. But Asra, here's a comment from somebody who's listening to us online. It said maybe it would be better if Elon Musk paid for it all. And I think that's an interesting comment because when Elon Musk funds things, we usually know that. And then we get to make a judgment based on what does Elon Musk stand for? Does Elon Musk stand for things that are in line with American values or opposed to American values? We all get to make that judgment. But it seems on the whole that people aren't out there saying fervently in great degree that Elon Musk is opposed to American values because he's hand in hand with capitalism. So when you're highlighting these other governmental ways of thinking and communist and Marxist and Maoist ways, we get to look at the funding of this and say, is this go hand in hand with the American way, or is it actually completely opposed with the American way? And we get to and we should judge that.
Yeah, it's sort of like, as you're speaking, I have thought about this protest industry and the productions they create as political theater. But now, as you've talked about it, Annie, I also think of it's like a masquerade ball, because they're wearing masks about what they are and what they believe. And the sad part about this is that the mainstream media, unfortunately, does not follow the money on the left. And they don't reveal the funders and donors so that people can make the kind of informed analysis that you're talking about. Because you know what? Hey, if you believe that free enterprise needs to be eliminated in the United States, like, own it, and these guys do own it. I mean, come on, they have in their name the Party for Socialism and Liberation, it's like, hit me over the head with it.
Yeah.
But the media will rarely report that. They just say, angry Americans march on Saturday across the country. You and I could write the headlines, right?
Sure. My kids could write the headlines.
Yeah, I know. And that's what really, that's why I do these stories in part also, because an informed citizenry makes better decisions, right? And that's transparency. And this has been like a masquerade ball trying to inform and actually capture our political process and our political system without transparency.
Sure, a Trojan horse. It's meant to deceive, absolutely, and manipulate. I wanted to ask you, you've given us
a words person?
No, not at all. You should hear my kids.
Speaker?
My kids' favorite thing is to listen to me talk on Friday nights after 15 hours of live radio. I'm like, get your shoes and go put them in the refrigerator. And they look at me like, you mean closet mom, right? And I'm like, you know what I mean. But speaking of the
scramble,
the silly people at the protests, we'll get back to that instead of me. Can you talk a little bit about the people who show up? Because you're giving us the ins and outs, the fabric of this quilt that has come together to. Like, we're manifesting a masquerade ball across the world. It looks so well produced and put together, so much so that you would just on the surface look and go, well, they've got their act together. They must really have something there. But then there are so many people who show up. They do man on the street interviews, Jesse Waters, and sends his producer out there. And I watch every second of those Johnny clips, those man on the street things. I can't get enough of them. But they don't have any idea what they're doing out there. They're just mad. And I honestly think a lot of the people who they interview, they do feel a little bit like they might be attached to the spectrum a little bit. And I always feel bad for that because I wouldn't want that person to be exploited in that way. What about the rank and file people who see these protests? They're upset. They want to protest because they don't like who's in charge. And they get there and they're kind of in over their head.
No, it's a really important and deep point that you're making that I would love to address because, like you, I'm a mom, and we want the healthy development of any individual and a society, right? And so if you have a grievance in society, just like our kids, right? Mom, I'm sick and tired of spaghetti every day, like, okay, what are the other options? Let's discuss it. Let's not throw the spaghetti on the wall. We want to think it through objectively and seriously and get them engaged in a constructive way in making, the next lasagna the next night. But what happens is what I have seen again and again and again is that this industry exploits vulnerabilities, fears, anxieties, amplifies them, does a lot of this rage bait, one of these terms that's become only a part now of our lexicon because of social media, and they put people in a perpetual state of grievance, which is not healthy. And what I've now come to understand from a global perspective is the funding of individuals like Neville Roy Singham into this American ecosystem is really important to understand because Neville Roy Singham has aligned with the Chinese Communist Party. I literally have a 5-part series last week where we place him in Shanghai at the Golden Tulip Hotel. You know, Annie, I'm going to keep repeating the Golden Tulip because until I get there, I love that name. We live for details like that.
Sure.
And there he is standing there, Annie, and he talks about how the conference attendees must work together to create a new world order that is aligned with the Chinese Communist Party and its president, Xi. And so that was my first evidence of him articulating directly his ideological goal. And why does it matter? Is because we documented $200 million plus that he's pumped into the organizations that then participated in Saturday's march. Just to close the loop on that idea is just that when I stood there then, Annie, I saw those people, many of them vulnerable folks like you described. Some of them, I even asked them themselves, so you're a relic of the Cold War, some of them like that. And then young folks who believe in communism. Yeah. And I watched them, and they were marching with the signs that are repeating the propaganda words of our adversaries, calling America a fascist state. Yeah. So the last concept that I'll just introduce is that propaganda experts call this information laundering. So they are using our people and our organizations in America to launder their propaganda that's anti-American. A lot of ideas there. I know.
No, we would keep you for the rest of the show if we could. Ryan, my co-host, is begging to ask one question. If you have time for one more quick question,
of course.
Yeah. Asra, I'm so interested in the investigation that you're doing. So just really quick. Yeah. And you talk about following the money, and you're talking about a lot of this is foreign money, which is really interesting. But of the money that's coming domestically from inside the country, has the Trump administration been able to cut off some of that money, as you see it anyway, by cutting off a lot of this NGO stuff, straight away, getting to the point right from the beginning of their administration? Have you seen any of that domestically been dried up?
I have not seen it dried up,
Ryan.
Yeah, because what is on the horizon, was in the horizon, on the horizon, is the fact that the Treasury, State Department, and Justice Department are all investigating this nonprofit network to see if they're breaking any of our tax laws and the laws that require you to register as a foreign agent if you're articulating the propaganda of a foreign nation. And so we are still... I see them unrelenting, Ryan. That's what's crazy. They are fearless. They are now even messaging more aggressively. And you might have seen the trips to Cuba, the spring break trips by the activists to Cuba, and
These people need
supporting the Chinese. Yeah, I know. Were you not on the flotilla?
No.
Supporting the Cuban Communist Party, which is working with the Chinese Communist Party, building ports in Cuba. This is all back to economic domination. And so those same people, Ryan, were just, you probably saw the clips, they're just flaunting it, man. They're living the life in Cuba and Havana, painting murals, right? Just
that's how everybody lives in Cuba.
Yeah, just enjoying,
people of the people.
Yeah. Because that art mural is going to just really uplift spirits. So I just love it. And I just, why, and I know you have to wrap up probably soon, but I just wanted to add that, my name is Asra Nomani. It's a name that, a lot of people might not have heard, but my middle name is Khuratul An, and my nickname used to be Annie. That's why I keep saying your name, Annie.
Yay! I love that.
And that was my nickname until I'm that's not my name when I was 10, And
well, it's a good one.
What's the story? I mean, we're an immigrant family that just found the best of life living in America. And that is the testimony that this protest industry does not want to hear or amplify, the goodness of America. And that is why I know, as a journalist, as a person on the streets, that there's some funny business going on. And that's why I do this reporting, is because the story of America is actually not being told by this protest industry.
Will you come back very soon and talk to us some more? We love talking to you.
Please.
Of course, Annie.
Okay, you too,
alter
Annie.
Ego.
That's right. I love it. We love
it.
reading your stuff, and we love that you're fiercely out there trying to get to the truth and expose it and talk about the golden tulip and all of those things. And we need to know these stories, and we need to hear them, and they need to be repeated and discussed. And you're leading that, so we're grateful for it. Please come back soon.
Absolutely. And you are ground zero because from Ferguson to Gaza, from Ferguson to, that became the mantra. Yeah. And so you're such a critical part of this history.
Well, thank you so much. We'll have you back
All
very
right.
soon. Take
Have
care.
a great day.
You as
Okay,
well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Man,
I was really looking forward to that interview. I didn't know it would be that good. There's still so many more layers to that. You could do 2 hours with her.
I know. She told us she could go. We